Hello, it's Lee Henkin here today, and this video I want to talk about, or give you a broad sort of overview of how to build a list of target prospects and accounts for your cold email campaign. So a few of these that I'm going to be going through are really kind of my preferred methods for target prospect researching and building lists. Okay, so it's by no means an exhaustive list of everything that's out there. It's just some of the things that I've done before or still do today, okay? So let's just dive straight into it. And just before I actually dive into kind of the different methods, one of the things I want to point out with this is none of these will really be 100% effective unless you're really specific on who it is you want to be targeting and who your ideal client is, okay? That's really the key to being able to utilize these methods effectively. All right, so let's dive into it. So first one here is Sales Navigator. So this is one of my favorite ways to do research and list building. It's really effective for identifying decision makers at companies, okay? So it tends to be really more suitable on the kind of B2B corporate side, I find. So I find it tends to be not as effective for businesses like, say, like local businesses, for example. Okay, so but kind of the B2B, more corporate kind of companies, it's really effective for identifying decision makers because it's got a lot of great search filters. Okay, I mean, there are some limitations with those filters, but in general, they're pretty good search filters. And with Sales Navigator, if you're familiar with it, there's basically a lead and account search function. So the lead search allows you to kind of look for the actual individuals at companies that match whatever your search filters are, whereas the account search is more to actual target companies. It's a little bit different there because you can also, there's some slight variance with what those filters are between the lead and account search functions. Okay, and so once you build out your list, essentially, you'll be able to scrape the contact details of those decision makers. Tools like Scrap, Weezer, Snadio. Okay, so this is just a broad overview. I'm not going to go into detail with kind of all the search filters between lead and account. I've got other videos you can take a look at for that. As I mentioned, all of the methods I'm covering will just be kind of a broad overview. So let's move on to the next one. B2B Databases. At the moment, it's probably my favorite way to build lists and do prospect research. So a lot of these have really robust and advanced search filters, like just with a ton of data points, sales intelligence indicators, which is super important because then once you know those data points, sales intelligence indicators, you're going to be able to create a message that's like really specific for that group of target prospects. So I really like B2B databases. They're extremely fast once you know exactly who it is you want to be targeting, like with specific detail and clarity. So you can build lists like super quick and export their contact details super quick as well. You'll get a lot of verified emails, and depending on the actual database you use, some of them will give you like an absolute ton of data points, whether it's, mobile phones, office phones, physical addresses, revenue, technology stacks, like basically the whole works. Really varies on the database, but in short, there's just a ton of data points with most of them that I've used, and sales intelligence indicators, which is really one of the reasons why I like to use them so much at the moment. Okay, just a few of my favorites that I'm using at the moment: Lead Presso, UpLead, Lime Leads, which is exclusively US only data. Apollo is a really cost-effective one, and Lead Furies. By no means is that an exhaustive list. They're just some of the ones that I currently use. Okay, so let's move on to the next method. Google Maps searches. So this is really particularly useful if you're targeting local businesses. So if you're targeting gyms, contractors of sorts, restaurants or something like that, okay, because you can basically type in the city or town you want to target and then select whatever that type of local businesses that you want to target, run the search, and it will give you an entire list of search results that matches that geography and whatever that niche or something. So if you're doing like restaurants in, I don't know, Charleston or something like that, or restaurants in Miami, restaurants in London, blah, blah. Okay, so it's a really good way to build out kind of a kind of large, extensive list. The only kind of, I guess, downside to it is you can't really get super specific, okay? Like you can't select size and stuff like that of the companies you're looking for. But once you've actually searched for whatever it is you're looking for, you can use tools like Phantom Buster, which will scrape the entire list of Google Maps search results. And then you can basically either still use Phantom Buster to get the email addresses, or third-party tools like Snovio by doing a bulk domain URL search, okay? Just by doing like the search in Phantom Buster for the Google Maps search result, you'll get quite a lot of data points. So I can tell you the category of the business, phone numbers, addresses, what kind of reviews they've had and things like that. So you get a lot of cool data points, but there are some limitations to using it as well. Okay, so D7 Lead Finder, this is one that's been around for a long, long time. Again, this is really good for targeting local businesses where it's like specific geographic targeting, like a town or city. Okay, gives you a lot of data points, I must admit, and kind of sales intelligence indicators, which is really useful. Probably the biggest downside to it, though, is more often than not the email addresses you get tend to be like generic business ones, like info at the business name, contact the business name, blah, blah. And the other thing I've found, too, in my experience using D7 Lead Finder, it's a bit 50-50 on kind of whether the email addresses are actually high quality or not. Typically what I'm doing, for example, when I use D7 Lead Finder is I'm actually going and verifying the email addresses I get, just to double check and be sure that they're valid and verified email addresses. But if you're looking to target local businesses en masse, and specific geographic targeting, and you want a lot of data points and sales intelligence indicators, D7 is pretty good. Just be aware that there is a kind of limitation with the email addresses you get as a result. Okay, so AngelList, Crunchbase. So I use this one quite sparingly, really. I've worked with a couple of clients in the past that kind of work with like fintechs and things like that, which is why I've really kind of used AngelList and Crunchbase before. Tends to be pretty good for startups but also kind of more established startups and companies as well. It has a lot of good data. It tells you the seed funding rounds and Series A, B, C funding. You'll be able to see like the decision makers and job postings. There's a ton of stuff you can see on it. And with AngelList specifically, there's actually a tool you can use to scrape the details of decision makers at companies you find in AngelList called Aero Leads, okay, which is pretty cool. But also what you can do is you can kind of match those contacts with like LinkedIn Sales Navigator searches and things like that as well. Crunchbase, on the other hand, actually gives you like a database of all their details. It is a bit pricey. So unless you kind of, you're specifically going to be working with fintechs, kind of those tech companies for a while, it's probably not worth getting it, like the actual paid plans with Crunchbase. But if you that is your target audience, it would be quite useful because you do get a lot of really good information in regards to contact details. Okay, built with. So this one is pretty much only going to be useful for companies that work with e-com brands. There's not really anything else you can use it for. I've used this before when working with some clients who target e-com brands. Sort of some of the benefits are, it is a seriously huge database. The biggest sort of benefit to build with is because a lot of companies that work with e-com brands, they're going to be looking at they might need to target Shopify store owners, or they might need to target brands that use PrestaShop, or whatever else there is out there, maybe BigCommerce, etc., etc. So BuiltWith is really good for that, okay, and it provides like a huge amount of data points and sales intelligence indicators from like sales revenue, monthly averages, ratings, phone numbers, addresses, like tech stacks, just there's a ton of stuff. I can't think of everything off the top of my head, but there's a seriously large number of data and intelligence indicators for companies that are looking to target e-com brands. So yeah, it's really useful if you're kind of a business that targets e-com brands. Okay. Next one here, ready-made bought lists. So these often do cop a lot of flack, and I must admit they kind of can be hit and miss. And I don't really use these a lot, okay? But one I have used in the past, and I must admit has been pretty decent for the most part, is called Book Your Data. They tend to be pretty pricey. However, with that being said, I mean, it's super easy to use and you can get your list literally within minutes, basically, if you know exactly what you're looking for. There's a lot of search filters. It's a global database, which is really cool, which I found quite useful when I'm working with maybe sort of hard to target markets where those countries don't have a lot of sort of search results on tools like Sales Navigator, for example, and then I've been able to use a tool like Book Your Data to really get the information I need. And there's a couple cool things with it is that you can build your own list. They have a bunch of search tools that allow you to do that. Once you build it, you can literally just download it, like I said, within minutes. And the other option, they also have like existing lists. Can't remember off the top of my head, but they have a lot of different sort of industries, whether it's hospitals, things like that, maybe government agencies, hotels, motels, contractors. Like you can just buy literally gigantic lists. Freight forwarders, I know, is one. Mortgage brokers, stuff like that. So they've got a lot of data there that you can use. It can be a bit pricey, I must admit. But if you want something that's pretty reliable and gives you search results like super quick, you want to save time when you're research and list building, then Book Your Data is one company that I can recommend from my own personal experience. Okay. So that is basically it. So that's kind of a broad overview of the ways that I do list building and do target prospect and account research, okay? Obviously, as you would have seen, that was a broad overview. I couldn't get super specific, or this video would go for like 2 hours probably. But they're kind of the methods that I'm using at the moment, and I've kind of used in the past as well, and had a lot of success with. So, the main thing really to get results with, I guess, like accurate and specific list building is knowing who you're going to be targeting, okay? But once you know who you're going to be targeting and you're really clear and specific on that, a lot of these tools will be very useful to you. So if you do want more kind of specific insights and information into how you build lists and things like that, please do check out my B2B Prospecting Academy training program, where I have quite in-depth modules on list building for cold email and research. And if you want kind of more personalized one-on-one help, whether that's kind of in a consultative capacity or even as a done-for-you managed service, book a call and we can chat about how we can basically help you with your cold email campaigns. So that's about it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.